Hello everyone, you're watching RAM24.com channel and today we'll be taking apart Huawei Pura 70. First we need to remove the SIM card tray. To do this we use a SIM eject tool. Insert it into the hole, push the tray out and set it aside. After that we need to heat the surface of the back cover to approximately 70 degrees Celsius or 160 degrees Fahrenheit. We're using a heating mat for this, but you can also use a heat gun or a hair dryer. And after about 10 minutes we can move on to separating or removing the back cover. For this we use a thin but fairly durable plastic film. We insert it into the gap between the back cover and the mid-frame, then carefully slide it along the edge, cutting through the adhesive layer. As always, we need to be careful around the camera area to avoid accidentally touching or damaging the lenses. And of course, we shouldn't push the film in too deeply, since we don't know what components are located underneath the back cover. So we remove the cover and can see that the area around the cameras is additionally glued down. After that, we move on to removing the screws from the upper section. For this we use a 1.5mm Phillips screwdriver or a Phillips #30. It is best to arrange the screws in a specific order on a dedicated surface, since the screws vary in size and are installed in different locations. It is also a good idea to take picture of the screws or mark their positions on the cover, as this will help during reassembly. And as we can see in the lower section, we can unscrew and remove the bracket that covers the battery connectors. We continue removing the screws, arranging them in the order in which they will be reinstalled later. If the screws are difficult to remove, we can use a magnetizer and tweezers to take them out. After removing the screws, we need to disconnect the two battery connectors. For this we use a non-metallic tool, in our case it is tweezers with ceramic tips. Carefully lift from the edge and disconnect both battery connectors. After that we will need to remove the upper cover assembly. And we check where the flex cable runs, most likely the flash cable. There is probably a connector on the opposite side. So we carefully lift from the edge, gently raise the cover and try to disconnect it. And indeed, there is a connector on the opposite side, and the flex cable runs exactly to that location. We need to carefully disconnect the connector to avoid damaging it or the flex cable, which most likely goes to the flash module. And we carefully bend the cover back, since there is another connector and another flex cable running most likely from the wireless charging coil to the subboard. We now need to remove the screws in the lower section. In the lower section, one screw is also different in size, so the screws should likewise be arranged in order on a dedicated surface, photographed or marked to avoid mixing them up during assembly. So we remove the stock screws using tweezers. After that we can disconnect the cover, carefully lift it from the edge in the correct location and try to raise it. We should not leave the cover in areas where connectors and flex cables are located, in order to avoid damaging the flex cables or the traces on them. Okay, carefully lift and disconnect it. As we can see, the loudspeaker is mounted on the cover. We set it aside, then disconnect the wireless charging connector and remove the core assembly, which most likely includes the NFC module. After that, we need to disconnect the interconnect flex cable connectors. We disconnect them on the subboard side. As we can see, there are 3 connectors. Then we disconnect them on the motherboard side. We can see that the connector is secured with a retaining clip. And as we can see, the cable has an arrow indicating the direction toward the motherboard. And we set the cable aside. Now we disconnect the remaining connectors. We disconnect the fingerprint sensor connector. We also need to disconnect the display flex cable connector. We need to lift it carefully by the thin metal tab on the edge. And now we can remove the subboard, which is recessed into the frame. Carefully lift it, gently rock it side to side, remove it and bend the flex cables out of the way so they don't interfere. And so we take a look at the layout of the subboard and the placement of the components. We check which side the microphone is located on. So the subboard contains the charging port, the microphone under the shield, and on the opposite side the SIM card connector. The fingerprint sensor and vibration motor remain installed in the display frame. And now for our traditional quick microphone opening test. The microphone opening has an L-shaped design and is located in the display frame. On the opposite side there is a membrane or protective mesh. The microphone body itself is located on the reverse side of the subboard. If we insert something into the microphone opening, we won't be able to damage the microphone that way. Next, we move on to the motherboard. On the motherboard, we disconnect the connectors. We also remove the brackets and place them on a dedicated surface. And at some point, we can try removing the camera assembly. Carefully, we check the order and determine what needs to be disconnected first. There is no need to use force, simply lift carefully and remove the cameras. Okay, first we disconnect the dual rear camera assembly, and after that we can disconnect the large rear camera, also known as the main camera. We set the camera aside. We also need to disconnect the front-facing camera. The front camera is secured with a bracket. Lift it, disconnect it and set it aside. We disconnect the connector and carefully remove the front camera, then set it aside. And now we need to remove one screw securing the motherboard, again using a Phillips screwdriver. This screw is also different from the previous ones, so it should be kept separately. And now nothing is preventing us from removing the motherboard. As before, we need to carefully lift it from the edge in the correct spot, raise it and remove it. On the reverse side, the motherboard may still be held in place by thermal paste. As for the microphone opening in the upper section, the situation is exactly the same, an L-shaped channel with a mesh or membrane on the opposite side. The microphone body itself is located on the reverse side of the motherboard. If we insert something into the opening, we won't be able to damage the microphone that way. And so that completes our assembly. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again in our next videos, either on our Telegram channel or on our website.